Guardian headline said, Obama gets rock star welcome. One Berliner called it an anti-Bush rally. And the Financial Times Deutschland called it an ad for the war on terror.
If we could win a battle of ideas against the communists, we can stand with the vast majority of Muslims who reject the extremism that leads to hate instead of hope.
In a speech laden with Cold War rhetoric, Democratic presidential hopeful Barack Obama stood before more than 200,000 people in Berlin on Thursday and summoned Europeans and Americans to work together on many issues, from Iraq and Afghanistan to the war on terror and climate change. An editorial in the left-leaning Berliner Zeitung said, Obama's agenda seems to contradict George W. Bush's foreign policy on nearly every point. His agenda is well thought through and could easily have been drafted by political thinkers in Europe. However, it is very abstract on many points. When he eventually gives them substance, then these differences with the Bush administration's policies fall away. The conservative Die Welt wrote, Berlin is good. Berlin is everywhere. It sounded nice, but it was just a sleight of hand when he called for people to see the fight against all the evils of the world, against terrorism, pollution, injustice, as a simple continuation of 1948's Berlin airlift. And the left-leaning Die Tageszeitung, in Germany he has become a star, a counter-image to George W. Bush's aggressive provincialism. When you take away the Obama feel-good factor, what remains is a crystal-clear demand: more European soldiers for Afghanistan. If he wins, Obama will be a difficult U.S. president for Germany.
The Afghan people need our troops and your troops, our support and your support, to defeat the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, to develop their economy, and to help them rebuild their nation.
Obama was in Paris for 5 hours on Friday, where he met with French President Nicolas Sarkozy, a conservative, but as the French press noted, not with the opposition Socialist Party. On Saturday in London, he had a 1-hour meeting with former Prime Minister Tony Blair, now a special Mideast envoy. He then met with British Prime Minister Gordon Brown and praised the support of Great Britain in Iraq and Afghanistan, and ended his European trip with a visit to the leader of the British opposition Conservative Party, David Cameron. We spoke to Andreas Zumach of Die Tageszeitung about reaction to Obama's visit.
The European politicians are somewhat glad about the general statements Obama made on the need for improving the Euro-Atlantic alliance again. They are glad about what he said on more cooperation on global issues like climate change, on the U.S. in the future more obeying international law, but that's about it. They are very worried, especially the ones in Germany, France, and the other big European countries, about the clear message he sent on Afghanistan, where he very clearly and undiplomatically said, we need more of your troops in Afghanistan, which means more war fighting done by the Europeans in a war that's bound to be lost. They don't know what his real positions are on issues like torture. He made this nice general line saying, we will reject torture and stand for the rule of law, but he didn't say whether he would close Guantanamo in case he gets elected. And there's also a question mark still about what is his real position on Iraq, because his position that he would start withdraw troops once he gets elected. He is talking about combat troops, and that means very obviously that up to 50% of the 160,000 soldiers which are deployed right now in Iraq will be deployed there for the time being.
The mentions of the Cold War, of fighting communism, things that in America are everyday speak, but in Western Europe, people don't always feel that way.
I agree, he used the Cold War language, even though it sounded somewhat funny out of his mouth, because it's so obvious that he is of another generation. But nevertheless, it's a very dangerous one, because he means it, as far as I'm concerned. My biggest concern is about his position on Afghanistan, because there doesn't seem to be any critical reflection on this war and what the actual situation is, which seems to be a general problem as far as I see it, not only with him personally, but with the Democratic Party, and beyond that with large parts of the U.S. peace movement. What concerns me even more on the issue of the Middle East conflict, specifically on Israel-Palestine, where he fell behind the position even the Bush administration and the so-called roadmap are putting forward. If you remember his speech he gave 4 weeks ago to the most influential lobby organization, AIPAC, where he said, quote, Jerusalem will forever remain the undivided capital city of the Jewish state of Israel, quote end. And Obama repeated this line during his recent visit to Israel in the meetings he had there with mainly Israeli Jewish leaders. So I'm very concerned here, and as a matter of fact, many European politicians are very concerned, because if he implements this line, this kind of rhetoric as president, then there is no chance for a solution of the key conflict in the Middle East. On the other hand, there is one hopeful sign. To my observation, the most important statement Obama has made early on in the beginning of the primaries, and has not withdrawn yet, is his announcement that being elected president, he would engage in direct negotiations with, for instance, President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad of Iran, or with Mr. Castro in Cuba, or with Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. If he sticks to that, especially in the case of Iran, then I think we might see a fundamental change in U.S. policy at a very, very important conflict. On the other hand, he did not rule out military action against Iran. He was asked for that, and he did not rule it out. So it's a mixed message here.